Hi everybody. Jack has sent me some questions about the essay. So I'll just quickly go through Jack's questions very quickly, and then I'll give you my quote-unquote real answer, which is a more general answer, which is for everyone. So Jack's questions are: I selected a paradigm shift in marketing. I conducted a literature review about the marketing to understand the key terms and should I write a literature review about the developments of the marketing field? You can if you like, but it should be more than a literature review. Marketing is a broad topic. Should I focus on the strengths and gaps in the literature? You can certainly do that, and insofar as that serves the purpose of the essay overall, which it presumably would. The assessment details outline that the precise question that the essay will address is to be determined by the student in consultation with the unit coordinator, me. So, could I choose the following question? What are the implications of information technology in influencing market practices in current business environment? Yeah, you could answer that question. And 4, is it fine to discuss the ethical applications of marketing to influence consumer behaviour? Yes. Alright, now for my real answer. An essay is a self-contained, so it's not something of kind of like a to be continued, so to speak. It's a self-contained exposition of your own thoughts on a particular topic. Normally expressing an opinion or a view or a position to be taken on some issue or other. Often it's a controversial issue about that topic area. So in doing so, you will attempt to persuade your reader of your view or your opinion or your position by means of argument. So that is, it should be logically coherent and it should be supported by evidence of some kind. In making your argument, that is, in a sense, answering a question, you need to obviously read on the topic and read around the topic, related issues, or something related to the topic. And in that respect, the essay takes on qualities of a literature review, because you will necessarily be dealing with the literature which exists on that topic area. You can't just, well, for our purposes, you can't just, ramble on about your particular fever dream issues, about your particular fever dream that you've had about the particular topic. You need to tie it to the existing academic literature which exists. So you should use that literature that you survey to help you make your point, to support your argument, whatever that argument happens to be. Now, you've got a lot of freedom here for this task, because there's no set question. You formulate your own question and then you answer it. So in one respect, it's very liberating, because and in a sense it's easier, because you choose the question that you decide to answer, rather than struggle with trying to figure out what does the person who, rather than being given a question and then trying to figure out what does this person mean by this question. You should know what you mean. You ask your own question. On the other hand, it's potentially, for some students more difficult as well, because you got to come up with your own questions somehow. So too much freedom makes it difficult to winnow in or to whittle down to something specific that you can deal with. You might ask yourself, well, what question could I ask myself? But let's take Jack's example of paradigm shifts in marketing. You could ask, for example, well, the first thing you would do is you need to figure out what a paradigm means. What's a paradigm? What does that mean? And then what's a paradigm shift? What does that mean? You also need to ask yourself, what would marketing mean here? Are we talking about the academic discipline of marketing, or are we talking about marketing practices that exist in the quote-unquote real world? So you need to be clear on that. Make a decision about that, perhaps. Then you need to think about what sort of question you want to ask yourself. So maybe, for example, I'll just give you a few examples that I thought up for this topic area, which is paradigm shifts in marketing. You could ask yourself the question, what have been the major paradigm shifts that have occurred throughout the history of marketing in the 20th century? And can we say that these shifts have been progressive? That is, that they've resulted in an improvement in our knowledge of marketing, for example, if we're thinking of it as an academic discipline. Or have they resulted in improvements in the way marketing is conducted out in the real world? Obviously, an uncontroversial answer to that question would be to say, yes, of course, it's been an improvement. I mean, these are the major paradigm shifts which have occurred, and they've been progressive. These are progressive paradigm shifts. They've improved our knowledge and practices, or something like that. A more controversial answer would be to say the opposite. And you could just argue the toss if you like. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with taking a controversial position. It might make it more difficult, perhaps. It might make it easier. Who knows? But you could say, no. This is there have been definite paradigm shifts which have occurred in marketing throughout the 20th century, and they've been degenerating. They've been regressive paradigm shifts. Actually, we've destroyed knowledge. We know less now than we ever did before. But the marketing discipline, for example, has, I don't know, I'm just making something up. The marketing discipline has become insular and divorced from the practices of marketing out in the real world. I don't know, something like that. Maybe another question you could ask yourself is, why do paradigm shifts in marketing occur in the first place? Right? Are they kind of driven internally by unresolvable theoretical or empirical problems within the discipline, which leads to a break with the existing dominant paradigm and a revolutionary shift to a new paradigm which can solve these past problems? Or are these paradigm shifts which occur, are they driven by outside forces? That is, forces outside the academic discipline. Are they driven by, say, technological change, which has occurred over time? Or are they driven by changing institutional stakeholders? Okay. So traditionally, marketing was associated with private businesses, both small businesses and large businesses, as they attempt to sell some kind of product, coordinate the selling process. But over time you might say, well, the discipline of marketing itself has changed because some of the stakeholders have changed. Now there are charities, non-government organisations, governments themselves use marketing in various ways. Has that forced or compelled some kind of a change within the discipline? Or is this a kind of false dichotomy? It's not an either-or. It's not internally generated or externally generated. Could it be sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other? Could it be that there's some kind of symbiotic relationship between the two? Another question would be, and this would be related to, say, Jack's own suggestion, would be you could examine the impact on marketing theory and or practice of a particularly important paradigm shift which has occurred, okay? Either in the past or maybe in the present. So you can ask, well, what's been gained by that paradigm shift? What's been lost by that paradigm shift? So to take Jack's particular example, if I were to reword it, so to speak, change it a bit, might formulate it as something along the following lines. Has the emergence of information technology, and in particular the internet and even more recently social media, has the emergence of this phenomenon out in the real world resulted in a genuine paradigm change within current marketing practices or within the marketing discipline itself? And if so, has that been a desirable change? So you can add in kind of an ethical element to it, if you like. Okay? So, once you've settled on what you want to ask yourself, what your question is, then, and one should try and choose a question which is interesting to you, it piques your interest. Otherwise it's hard to stay motivated. So after you've done that, then look for the relevant literature that will help you answer that question. Now that's basically, these days, is going to involve specific keyword searches through journal databases, collecting together a whole pile of articles that seem relevant based on your reading of the abstracts of them, and then going through and carefully reading and taking notes on these articles, at least the ones you haven't culled, taking notes on these articles with a view to incorporating them or using them in your essay to make your argument. That is, to answer your own question as you see fit. Okay? That's what you need to do for the essay.